We have sales expert Walker McKay. He's going to hear directly. We're going to have somebody from Blue Cross Blue Shields, but they're not here. So we're just going to bring Walker on up because he's got a lot of great information. And we're going to dive right in. All right. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. How's everybody doing? Good. I'm so glad. Couple of things about my talk this morning. Number one, please relax, chill out. You will be part of the conversation. I'm going to call on you. So just know that's going to happen. If you need to get up and go to the restroom, get up and go to the restroom. I'm going to say some things maybe that are counter to what you know to be true, maybe counter to what you believe. And I want you to be skeptical. So what I want you to do, if I say something that you know isn't true, or you think I made up on the spot, which may happen, I want you to raise your hand. I don't know if I can do this at a chamber event. All right, I'm just going to go there. I'm going to break the rules. Can we say bullshit in this room? Is it okay? If you know that I'm saying something that just isn't so, or you think I made it up, I want you just to say bullshit, right? And if somebody's gutsy enough to say bullshit, I want the rest of y'all to clap. Is that cool? All right, so let's practice. I'm going to start with you, Whitney. I want you to say out loud, bullshit. Everybody go, yeah. Good. All right, so thank you, Whitney, much. I'm Walker McKay. I own a company called No BS Sales School. I tell my mother that stands for no bad salespeople, right? So, and we help people in typically B2B sales that they come to us and they say things like, well, the economy's kind of weird. The economy's very uncertain. By the way, the economy is always uncertain, right? The only time it is certain is in the rearview mirror, right? If we think about 3 years ago, when the world was shutting down, the economy was not certain, right? We come back and then nobody can get anything. It's uncertain what's going to happen next. Now, going forward, who freaking knows? Got experts on all sides. These are I'm going to share 5 rules with you, 5 ideas that if you put them into place and you adopt them, you will do well, right? You will grow your business. Maybe it's 6 rules. We'll see. Rule number 1, no excuses. Make no excuses. It's funny, even just walking around the room this morning, I heard some people make some excuses. Here's what it sounds like. Well, in this economy, nobody's buying what I sell. Or, there are no good people out there that I can hire. Or, nobody said this specifically this morning, but nobody will call me back. Or cold calling doesn't work. Those are all excuses. Those are things. And what's the impact? What's the impact, Henry, of people making excuses? What happens? What's that? You doubt it?
You doubt their word.
Yeah, you doubt their word. What happens to themselves when they make those things, though? What happens if you were, I know you wouldn't, Henry, but if you did make bullshit, right? If you do make an excuse, what happens to yourself when you say the excuse?
Start to believe it?
Yeah, you believe it. When I was in the commercial real estate business for 12 years. That's where most of my brain damage came from. And y'all weren't alive. Most of you weren't alive during this, but we had a pretty bad recession in the commercial real estate business between, say, 1988 through 1995. So Walker, how bad was it? Well, the CEO, or actually the chairman of the largest South Carolina bank, Bob Royal, who was the chairman of NBSC at the time, he was quoted in the state newspaper as saying, "I would rather give my children AIDS than commercial real estate." Wow. I would rather give my children AIDS than commercial real estate. So things were kind of tough, right? And so me and a couple of my buddies, I was in brokerage, so I was selling commercial real estate. And me and a couple of my buddies, we bought into that. Hell, nobody's buying anything. It's too hard. It's a crappy product anyway, blah, 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 blah. And we hung around, we stayed in the business anyway, which was dumb, if that was what we believed. What we found was there were 3 or 4 guys in our office who came in every day. They didn't hang out with us. They would go into their office and close the door, and they would work all day. They didn't go to lunch with us. They didn't go to beers with us. They didn't go to a movie at 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon like we did every week. They worked. And you know what's amazing? Those guys got lucky and made $400,000 to $800,000 every year during that horrible recession, when the rest of us knew that nobody was buying or selling commercial real estate. Right? That was on me, because I decided that nothing was happening, so why would I work? Here's how you can tell if it's an excuse. You're making yourself the victim. Nobody will call me back. Nobody's buying what I sell. Our prices are too high. My company sucks. You're making yourself the victim. Here's what I want you to say instead. I haven't figured out how to find somebody to buy what I sell. I haven't figured out how to get people to call me back. I haven't figured out how to create an alliance with somebody else who we can refer each other business. If you want to change your culture inside your business for the better quickly, give each other permission to call each other out on excuses. It needs to start at the top. If you're the boss and you have a meeting coming up with your team, I want you to say, look, I know that I am an excuse maker, because at some level, most of us are. If you're not, you don't need to do this. But I want you to give your staff and everybody there, if you hear me making an excuse, we can't grow the company, nothing's getting better, I want you to give them permission to say, hey, boss, suppose I told you that was an excuse. Suppose I told you that was an excuse. Now, if you're not the boss, you can't control that. I don't know if I would, without permission, tell your boss he's making excuses, but you can tell your best friend, hey, look, if you hear me making excuses and we're having beers on Friday afternoon, you mind calling me on that? Or your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, spouse, if you hear me making excuses, you mind calling me on that? Right? And get permission to do it back the other way. I haven't figured out how to lose 20 pounds. I haven't figured out how to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym. I haven't figured out how to name your thing. So what happens if you begin to take ownership? I'm going to go to you, Tim. What happens if you begin to take ownership and take away victimhood? What happens to us?
You get rid of the self-defamation. You start to have some self-confidence.
Yes, right? All of a sudden, when you take responsibility back and you own it, here's what I believe. If you say, nobody's buying what I sell, your brain goes, okay, nobody buys what you sell. Case closed. But if instead you say, I haven't figured out how to get buyers interested, or I hadn't figured out how to get anybody to buy what I sell, hadn't figured it out yet, your brain goes, yeah, we hadn't figured it out yet. How can I figure that out? What do I need to do? It's a powerful tool up here for good or for evil, right? So if we put it to work the right way, it can be a very positive thing. All right. Any questions about that? How many of you here would admit that maybe you've been an excuse maker at some point in your life and maybe now? Damn it. Right? Number 2, behavior is king. Behavior is king. Behavior is necessary. What is behavior? What is behavior? Do you know what behavior means in sales or in business? Yeah, what does behavior mean? What you do every day, the things you do to feed your business, right? What you do every day. This is I'll just talk about it from a sales perspective. This is what you do to bring new money in the door. What you do to bring new money in the door. This is prospecting. This is networking with a purpose. This is asking for referrals. It is knocking on doors, right? The things you do to bring new money in the door. Now, a lot of us, how many raise your hand if you're busy? Right now, raise your hand if you're busy, right? We're all kind of busy. Let's focus on busy doing what? If you were to take your calendar for this week and do it in 15-minute increments of what you were doing during that time, if you could really be honest, I don't know, a lot of us would find that we are probably doing 3 hours or less, probably spend 3 hours or less on things that can bring new money in the door. 3 hours or less in a week. So imagine, so what are the other things we're doing? Reading emails, responding to emails, sitting in meetings, checking social media, going to networking events where what we do is we go talk to our friends. We are doing paperwork for the boss. We're putting stuff in the CRM. We're helping our existing customers, right? Because they've got problems and we need to help them. We're working on deals, but they're not new deals. How much time are you spending working on new business? Now, I know you've got customers that you're fulfilling orders. That's awesome. That's great. There's this funny thing, though. We tend to spend the most time with our customers that already love us, that we're already getting the vast majority of, if not 100% of their business. Why do we do that? Why do you think we like to spend most of the time, Charlotte, with people that are already our customers, who already love us, whom we're already getting most of their business? Why do you think?
It's easier.
It's easier. They already like us. What do we know about prospecting and calling people that don't know us? And we're putting ourselves out there. It's scary. And what if they yell at us? What if they're mean? What if they just hang up? If you're like me and you have a high need for approval, you want people to like you, it's hard to prospect. But guess what? As we go into these uncertain times, like every day, right, things are going to change. The more lines you have into new business, the better. And yes, new business costs $5 and keeping an old one costs $1. But you got to spend that $5 if you want to grow your business. Here's what we know. Rule of thumb is that 15% of your business will go away every year. Your existing customers or clients get bought by somebody else. They stop doing what it is that you sell. They get bought, they close, they go out of business. Maybe you screw something up. 15% goes away. So if you're not adding 15% to the top, at least you're falling backwards. I want to talk about a certain segment. Y'all are here, members of the chamber, probably for the network, right? So you can meet people that you can do business with, right? Everybody probably feel that way. That's why you're here, right? And why you go to the chamber events and what value you get from the chamber, among other things. Here's what I want you to think about. I talk to a lot of people that say, oh, I love networking. I just love networking. It's my favorite thing to do. That's great. It's awesome. Here's what I want you to think, though. What are you doing when you're networking? A lot of people, they love networking because it is, if it's in the evening, because it never happens in the morning, of course, you going out and drinking free beer and eating shrimp with your friends. I mean, who would not love that? Here's what I want you to picture. I want you to have a goal for your networking. The second part of network is work, right? And so perhaps, that's what I do when I go to a networking event, is I think to myself, I want to find 2 people that I can call about business in the next 2 business days. After I've done that, then I can either go hang out with my friends or I can go home. I've done my job. Right? Just like my father used to say, Walker, you'll never make any money in a bar. You'll never make any money in a bar. I used to spend a lot of time in bars when I was younger, single, whatever. But those were the cool guys. Those are the people I ran with. I never made any money in a bar. And you're not going to make money at a networking event unless you're going to find new people. And now here's what I want you to think about. It's not just that you can sell something to. Maybe it's somebody that you can introduce to somebody else. Maybe it's somebody that you can send a customer to or you can do business with. Go to a networking event to give. How can I help somebody else? Who are 2 people that I can help in the next couple of days? Maybe that's help them by showing them what you have. Maybe it's help them introducing somebody else. Maybe it's help them by, send them to a lawyer, an attorney, or an accountant, or somebody who can help them. Focus on how can I go to give? Now, I know there are books written about that, the Go Giver, blah, blah, blah. It's a simple thing. I believe it's a choice to become a giver. I think the status quo is to say, okay, who's going to help me? Who's going to help me? Who's going to help me? Hey, why is nobody helping me? But imagine if the whole world was wired towards, who can I help? What's that? It always starts with you. Start with you. Imagine if the Columbia Chamber came to be a place where people went and say, how can I help somebody else? And it's not just salespeople stuffing business cards in other salespeople's pockets. Who can I help? All right. Uncertain times. Rule number 3. You are not the right fit for everybody. You're not the right fit for everybody. So what does that mean? Hank, if you had to think about somebody that you're not the right fit for, why would somebody not be the right fit for you?
They're only concerned about low price.
All they care about is low price. Now, low price is a strategy. I understand that. What's the only reason, if somebody buys low price, why will they leave you? Low price from somebody else. I've also found that low price customers are often the worst. Low price customers put no value on you. They put no value on your service. They say they're all the same. I might as well buy the cheapest, but then they're also the biggest pain in the butt. You ever seen this before? The one who beats you up on price, they demand everything. Sucks. I want you to be very clear. If your strategy is to sell low price, good, that's great. Often that's an e-commerce strategy where people aren't involved, just transactional. Focus on those customers that need help. And if somebody can't explain to you and you can't tease out of them, what's the problem they're trying to solve? What's the reason? Hey, here's a great question. If there was a reason you were to spend $1 more than cheapest, if you could think of a single reason why you'd spend $1 more than cheapest, what would that be? Imagine if all of us learned to ask that question and then to listen. Hey, look, I appreciate you're looking for a low price. That's probably not going to be us. If you could think of a single reason why you'd spend $1 more than cheapest, what would that be? If they can't think of one, wow, so sorry. And then you know what you can do is you can send them to your worst competitor, the one you hate the most. What's another reason you might not be the right fit for somebody? I'll pick one. They're a jerk. There's lots of business out there, despite uncertain times. There's lots of business out there. You will define your business as much by the people you tell no to as the ones you take. Think about your worst customer right now. the biggest pain in the butt. Doesn't matter if it's your biggest or your smallest. Picture them. Snap your fingers, they're gone. What changes in your business for the better? Morale probably goes up. You got time to work with better customers, right? You got time to focus on the ones that matter and to prospect for new ones. Who's another customer that may not be the right fit? Who have I not picked on? What about you?
Someone you don't trust.
Somebody you don't trust. You don't have a trusting relationship with, or they don't trust you. One of the things we talk about around here is some will, some won't. So what? Who's next? Some people will buy, some people won't. So what? Who's the next person they need to be talking to? I would say somebody that's not the right fit is somebody that is just shopping around. They're not ready to buy in the next, I don't know, everybody's business is different, but let's just pretend they're only interested. You know, I'm interested in talking to you about this, but no, I'm not going to do anything in the next 6 months. I'm not telling you to throw them at your door, but you don't have to spend a lot of time there. I want you to focus on those people. Well, and everybody's business is different again, but probably think about healthy business relationship. Who can have a healthy business relationship with? Now, this is in opposition. Well, let me back up. A lot of people go into business and into sales specifically because they are told you can talk to anybody and you have so many friends. Right? And it's very rewarding all the way through college and maybe a year or two after to have lots and lots of friends. And so then we go into sales. What's the problem with going into sales and saying, all I need to do is make friends with them? I just want to make friends with everybody. What's the problem with that? If there is a problem. How about you? What's the problem with going into sales or business just because you're great at making friends, Hannah? Hannah said it might just be surface, right? Well, let's go back to the issue of friendship. What is the goal of a friendship? What's the goal of a friendship, Stan?
Is to make a personal, emotional type connection with someone, but
Yes.
I don't try to get my social needs met.
Right. Sorry. Yes. So here's the thing. The goal of a friendship should solely be the friendship itself. But how about this? If you're in business, you say, I'm going to make friends with that person so I can sell them a lot of stuff. You're already going in being disingenuous. By the way, how many of you actually need more friends right now? Raise your hand. Please don't raise your hand. Please don't raise your hand. How many of you actually need more friends? Most of you, if you thought about it, you don't need more friends. And by the way, neither do your prospects. They're not looking for friends. You know what they're wondering? If you're waiting outside their office door and they're busy, but you have an appointment to go see them, if they're taking the time to see you, here's my guess what they're thinking. I hope this person can help me. And if you're sitting outside going, maybe we'll be friends. We go to Clemson games together. We can do blah, 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 blah. It's a cross. You're not the right fit for everybody. Next thing. Ask, don't tell. Ask, don't tell. Show people how smart you are by the questions that you ask and not by the statements that you make. Now, remember that old thing, oh, you should go into sales. You can talk to anybody. That's probably a sign you talk too much. Right? In a sales call, you should talk 30% of the time, they should talk 70% of the time. Now, all of y'all have heard that before, right? Wonder how often we do that, right? And the excuse is, I just can't help it. I talk too much. How about this? I haven't figured out how to shut up. How many of you have heard from day 1 to day 5 in sales, you got to ask questions? Raise your hand. How many people have heard that? Everybody has. You got to ask the right questions. My boss, when I worked for a bank a long time ago, my boss came in with that and he goes, Walker, you just got to ask the right questions. You got to just ask the right questions. And I watched him in a sales call. There was never a pattern for me. I couldn't pick up what were the right questions. But he and I tussled over that a lot because he just kept repeating that over and over again. I was like, what the hell is that? What are the right questions? And then because I'm weird, I kind of focused on that for a while. And I realized that even what are the right questions is the wrong question. The question should be, what do I need to learn? I want you to go on a sales call not to educate your prospect, but to learn about your prospect. Most salespeople do ask questions, data questions. How many? How much? How long? Now, some of those are good questions, but to stop there, you're missing the boat. What you need to think about is, what are your prospects' opinions about the data? How many do you have? Is that good or bad? How long's that been going on? Is that good or bad? What do they think about that? And here's the thing, when somebody shares their opinions, don't tell them they're wrong. Don't tell them they're wrong. Even if you believe they're wrong, shut the hell up. I want you to dig in and find out, what do they think about their situation? They say, I think I need a new copier. Why? This sounds like a really dumb question, but why do you think you need a new copier? They're calling you about, they need engineering help. We need to do this project. Cool. Happy to talk to you. Why would you not use the engineer that you normally use? What's going on there? Oh, we're just bidding out. Jim, we bid out every time. Okay, that's great. So how are you going to pick? How are you going to pick? At which point you might hear, well, best value. We're going to pick best value. What does that mean, by the way? Well, who knows what it means? It often means low price. But that's kind of a BS answer that people give when they really hadn't thought about how they're going to pick. Or maybe they are trying to pick low price. I want you to lean in on that a little bit. When you say best value, what do you mean? How will you know? The more we know about why somebody's doing something, we got to know, what's the problem? Why is that a problem? How does that impact their company? And how does that impact them personally? And then, how important is that to fix now? What's the problem? Why is that a problem? How does that impact them? How does that impact their company? And how important is that to fix now? I want you to recognize there is some, for lack of a better word, romance in this. Sometimes we want to just, and I'm all about being direct, but sometimes we can't just punch them in the face, right? You can't just say, tell me your pain, right? It's got to be an iterative process where you are teasing this information out, because a lot of people haven't processed it themselves. You've got to do the work with them. Go slowly. Ask, don't tell. As one of the questions I said before, hey, if you had to think of a reason why you'd spend $1 more than cheapest, what would that be? Or here's another one. Let's pretend you hired me today. Let's pretend you hired me today. Adderall mouth. My goodness gracious, let me get some water. Woof. Anybody else have ADHD here? Cheers to you, right? Let's pretend you hired us today and it's a year from now. And you're telling me, wow, so glad I did that. One of the best business decisions I've made. What would have to happen in the next 12 months for you to be able to tell me that? What do you think you'll learn? What they care about, what they want fixed, what's important to them. And then you can decide, are these expectations I can meet? Are these expectations I want to meet? Right? Let's go to the next one. What time is it? How am I doing? I know, man, I could make up all kinds of things now. The next one, this is kind of funny, I think, but it's, I want you to believe and know you have equal business stature with every person you deal with. You are the same. You are not better than, you are not less than. A lot of people in a sales call believe in the golden rule. He with the gold rules, or she with the gold rules, or they with the gold rules. See, I think that's a bullshit rule. You are equal. And here's what I want you to know. And why do we give, somebody shout out, why do we give the prospect so much power and control? Why do you think, we'll go over Nikki said here, why do you think we give the prospect so much power and control, Sharice?
Because we want the sale.
Because we want to sell. And we're also afraid they can say, well, we can go anywhere. They can go buy from anybody. So we give them all this credence, leverage. Let's go back to rule number 2. Behavior is king. Behavior wins. Let's pretend you had 10 qualified appointments set over the next week with people who can do business with you, who are in your ideal sweet spot. And one is jerking you around. One's giving you a hard time. How easy is it to say, man, I'm so sorry. Sounds like I'm wasting your time. And you walk away because you got 10 more. And you don't care. This is the same. Imagine if all you had, this is the only appointment you had set. It's all you got. Nothing behind it. Hadn't anything in a week. And this is your only appointment. Who's the pressure on? Pressure's on you. So understand your need to close this transaction probably has an inverse proportion to your likelihood to close it. The more you want it, the more you need it, the less likely you are to close the business. I'm gonna come over here and ask somebody why. Why do you think, Robbie? Why do you think the more you need the business, the more it matters to you, the less likely you are to close? If you had to guess, what would it be?
Putting too much pressure on yourself.
Too much pressure on yourself and maybe on the prospect. By the way, raise your hand if you love being sold to. If you love it when a salesperson puts pressure on you, raise your hand. Yeah, I don't like it either. The more you put pressure on somebody, the more they're going to push back. You've seen it. I've seen it. Before I knew what I was doing, right, I put pressure on people. I had to try to make friends with everybody, and then when things didn't work out the way I wanted to, I put pressure on people. That's no good. You blow up relationships doing that. Go back to some will, some won't. So what? Who's next? Here's another thing about equal business stature. It's okay to talk about money. It's okay to ask somebody how much this problem is costing them. It's okay to ask, Do you have a budget for this? How much is it? It's okay to talk. A lot of our parents, and love them, love my parents. My mother, I mean, if you brought up money as a conversation, she's like, that is rude. Don't ever talk about money. Meanwhile, my father would go into somebody's house and say, this is a great house. How much you pay for it? Right? So I've got this whole thing going on. I want you to be more comfortable talking about money because money's the water in our business, right? That's what makes it flow. No money, no sale. Got to ask, do you have a budget for this? If they say, well, I don't know how much it costs, you can give them a range. Service like this, I don't know, could probably cost somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000. Give them a range. Am I even in the ballpark? I would hold back on giving your price until you're 90% sure you got a buyer. Give them a range. That's good enough for most people. Equal business stature also means, and this is basic, and this is where some people want to fight me. Again, parents, call people by their first name. Some of y'all heard me talk about this. I pound it in people's heads. Call your prospects, clients by their first name. If you are paying rent or a mortgage somewhere and you're getting a paycheck or you're a 1099, you're the same as every other business person. It's not Mr. Smith, it's Joe. Right? It's not Mr. Gates, it's Bill. By the way, if you get introduced to Bill Gates, you have absolutely right to speak to him with his first name. What I've found is anybody that will correct you is probably an ass you don't want to do business with anyway. Here's where this resonates with me is that when somebody calls me or I meet somebody and they say, well, particularly on the phone, Mr. McKay, I know I'm dealing with a chump. I know I'm dealing with a chump when somebody calls me Mr. in business. Now, I have a 17-year-old son and a 20-year-old son. Their friends call me Mr. When they get a job, they're paying rent or a mortgage somewhere, fine, call me Walker. What would happen if you believed that you were equal with everybody else? You have just as much right to walk away. You have just as much right to disqualify them if they're not the right fit. You don't have to put up with bad behavior from anybody. Equal business stature. The last one, until I think of another one, is, it's funny. It's be the guide and not the hero. Be the guide, not the hero. Has anybody read a book called Story Brand? You ever read a book or heard about Story Brand? I highly recommend it. It's by a guy, I just can't remember his name at this moment. Do you remember? What's his name? Donald Miller. God, it's good. Donald Miller. He wrote it 4 or 5 years ago. It's a remake of a book written in the 1960s. But he tells a story about how people relate to stories, right? We see ourselves in stories, right? And so stories are a great way to do marketing. Many people get into sales, or once they're in sales, to be the hero. Let me tell you about a hero. A hero closes the deal, rings the bell, gets paid. Made the sale. Hell yeah. Sometimes, and I've heard this from salespeople before, and I want to smack them, I saved your butt. Weren't for me, you'd have been down. We did great. Sometimes it's not that obvious. I got my parents 10 years ago. I felt like their investment guy wasn't the right one. And so we moved their money from one investment guy to somebody else that I trusted more with where they were in life and what their money needed to be doing. And it was a great experience. It has been a great experience. But I ran into the person that's in charge of the firm at lunch one day, and I said, "Thank you so much for helping my parents. They really needed the kind of help you guys are giving." And this person said, "Thanks, we got a great team." Really? How about if they said instead, "Thank you so much for sending us your parents. We love having them as clients." If you're the guide, everything is about the other person. It's never about you. Think about the way you approach sales now. So the hero is somebody at the beginning of the story who has a problem. And the rest of the story is about them figuring out how to solve the problem. That's where the drama is, right? The gap between where they are, where they want to be. Oftentimes, the hero has a guide, a wise person who helps them solve the problem and stays in the background. Right? That's the guide. So think about Yoda and Luke Skywalker. Has everybody here seen Star Wars before? At least know what I'm talking about. Okay, good. Just make sure. Some of my stories are outgrown. So, and so I had this thing that made this very clear for me. I been really lucky. I go to Maine every year, the first week in June, and I go trout fishing way up in the North Maine woods, way up where there's no electricity, and we're like 75 miles from a paved road. We stay in this camp, and you know they have generators. We're not living off the land, right? But the first year we got there, 20 years ago, a guide met us at the dock. We fly on a float plane, get off at the dock. The guide meets us at the dock, and he says, "Hey, I'm so glad to meet you guys. My name is Gary. We're going to go fishing. Y'all be ready tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock." Okay. So we met Gary, great guy, hilarious. Gary would say, "All right, here's where we're going today." And we'd go out to go to one of the ponds up there. And he would say, "All right, cast over there. Good spot over here." So I would cast over there. And if a fish came up to bite my fly and I missed it, he would yell at me, "Damn it, you're ruining my numbers. Can't believe you missed that fish." Happened all day because I missed a lot of fish, right? It's okay. And whenever I would catch a fish, he would say, "See, I told you. See, told you where it was." So we fished with him for a couple of years. And then Gary moved on. And we met Pete, flying the float plane, get off the dock. Pete goes, "Hey, I'm your new guide. Looking forward to fishing with y'all. You mind if I ask you a couple of questions? I want to make sure you have a good experience." "Sure. Do y'all like fishing rivers more or ponds?" "There are rivers up here?" "Yeah." Gary said there were no rivers. He just said it was all ponds. He said, "Well, that's because Gary hates rivers." "We'd rather fish rivers." "Okay, great. Would you rather catch a few big fish during the day or a lot of small fish?" "Well, we probably need to start on the small fish to get our rhythm right. But after that, we can go for the bigger fish." "Great. So how do y'all like to fish? Do you like to fish like from 8 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night?" We're like, "Hell no, that's what Gary made us do." "We'd rather fish from, leave here about 10. We always want to be back in camp by happy hour, which gets earlier every year." "Great." So we go out, Pete with me on the river, and he says, "Cast over there. Fish this seam right here in the river." So I fish that seam, a fish comes up and bites, I miss it. And he says, "Good try, let's do that again. Good try, let's do that again." I catch a fish, he goes, "Way to go, Walker." It's not about him, it's all about me. A hero has to save everybody. A hero has to make every single sale, because if they don't make the sale, the opposite of hero is loser. Nobody wants to be a loser. So if you go in with hero mentality, you got to pressure people. Everybody's got to buy. It's personal. The guide gets to choose who they work with. Now I'm listening to a podcast now on a podcast channel called Acquired. It's two business nerds that talk about the life cycle of different businesses. They talk about a lot of tech companies, but the one that I'm just listening to now is about Nike. And it talks about when Michael Jordan came on board with Nike, and they created a shoe called the Air Jordan. Hugely successful. They put out Air Jordan 2, and everybody hated it, including Michael. It had the wrong leather, took too long to break in, all that kind of stuff. And Michael complained about it, customers complained about it. And so they said, we got to do something different. And so they sent Nike's chief architect, who designs their buildings, and said, let's design a shoe. You go in there and design a shoe for Michael. And he said, I don't know what Michael wants. You know what architects do? They ask questions. So he goes in, sits down with Michael and says, tell me about the shoe you want. What do you want? He says, I want something with these colors on it. And what about the material? He goes, I need soft leather that breaks in immediately. And what about the sole? I like this kind of sole because it sticks to the floor. And what about this? Well, I want that. And so Michael describes to them the kind of shoe that he wants. And the architect goes back and designs what he wanted, because the architect understood what Michael Jordan wanted. There was so much at risk there. But the first shoe, Michael wasn't part of the conversation. Here's your shoe. The second shoe, he wasn't part of the conversation. Here's your second shoe. This sucks. Well, that relationship with Nike has been worth over $1 billion to Michael Jordan, which means it was probably worth 10 times that or more to Nike itself, because they took the time to have a conversation. What are you really looking for? What does great look like? What are you hoping we can do for you? Tell me why that's important. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? Suppose we can't do that. Be a guide. Understand your prospect. Go to the sales call to learn, not to educate. Nobody gives a damn how long you've been in business. Only salespeople say, well, they care because we're local. That's some BS people throw. I'm glad you're local. That's not a negative, particularly unless it's a negative to somebody. You don't know. Ask, what's really important to you? Again, we go back to, let's pretend it's a year from now and you're telling me, man, I'm so glad I switched. So glad I bought from you. What would have to have happened? Right? Ask questions. Be a guide to see, can I give this customer what they're really looking for? If not, maybe I should move on. By the way, people are willing to pay a little bit more for exactly what they want. All right. Here's what I'd like to do. And I should have done this at the beginning. Will y'all either pull out a business card or take a piece of paper to the top of your desk? I'm going to do a drawing for a free 30-minute coaching session. So either pull out a business card if you would, or take a piece of paper from one of these pads and write your name and phone number, email. Here's the thing. This is not a trick for me to call all of you. It's not. I want you to write on either the front or the back of your business card the letters QRS. QRS. I screwed this up, should have done in the beginning. You don't have a business card, write your name, phone number, email on one side or on the same side, I don't care. And then write the letters QRS. I will only, you can participate in the drawing if you have written and you send your thing up. I will only call you if you circle Q, R, or S. Okay? Q means I have a question for you, Walker. I have a question about your talk. I have a question about sales. I have a question about you or about business. circle Q if that's the case. I will call you in the next couple of days to answer your question. Second, R stands for, hey, look, I don't really need your help, but I know somebody else that might. R stands for referral. Circle R. S means I belong to a group, I belong to a company, and we're often looking for speakers in our sales meetings, or in my association, or in some networking group I belong to. If you know of an opportunity for me to be a speaker, circle S, and I will call you about that. I have a newsletter that we send out weekly. If you want to be on the newsletter list, we send out sales tips, sales ideas, links to podcasts, stuff like that. Circle your email and I will put you on that list. I will not call you if all you've done is circle your email. It's cool. I don't need more people that don't want to hear from me. Not looking for those. Last thing I'll tell you, this has nothing to do with your business card, is I have a podcast called the No BS Sales School Podcast with Walker McKay, the longest podcast name in the history of podcasts. But it's on any platform where you listen to podcasts. They're short, 8 to 12 minutes, quick sales tip, sales idea, business idea. I want it short enough you can listen to it on the way to work, on your way to the gym, on the way home. Get a good idea, put it to use. Sales, learning about sales in an intellectual fashion, neat. Share it at a cocktail party. Take one thing you've learned from today, put it to use. Take one thing you learned from a podcast that we publish twice a week, put it to use. No BS Sales School, or you can just search Walker McKay on wherever you listen to podcasts. If you hear something you like that someone else needs to hear, share it. I'm getting the sign. The hook is out. Thank you guys very much. Appreciate your listening.
Thank you, Walker. That was amazing. I took lots of notes. I have not found out how to tell people to join my organization yet. We do have there's a lot of new faces here. So thank y'all for coming. Small Business Council of the Chamber does a lot of stuff. We have these once a month. We're always trying to find different topics for small businesses. So like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and all that stuff. And please come back because we do have a lot of great presentations throughout the year.